going to go over qualitative graphs. Qualitative graphs are graphs that can show a relationship between quantities without using specific numbers on the axes. This is an example of a qualitative graph. Now, let's look at what this graph represents. The graph starts with the water level remaining at a constant. It then rises at a constant, which is illustrated by the straight line. The line would be curved if it wasn't a constant rate. Next, it remains constant again, which is why there is a straight line here. Finally, it decreases at a constant rate. And I know it's a constant rate because it's a straight line. If I needed to write a scenario that went with the graph, I could say, this can be the water level in a lake. The water level stays the same for a period of time. It rains a lot and the water level rises. It's cloudy and stops raining, and the water level stays constant. The sun comes out and the water starts to evaporate. Let's look at the next example. This graph represents the speed of two cars. One car is approaching a stop sign and the other is approaching a yield sign. Graph A shows a curved line, which means this car does not slow down at a constant rate. It also doesn't hit the x-axis, so we know the car doesn't stop. Graph B shows the car slowing down at a constant rate and stopping. You know it stopped because it hit the x-axis. So if the question asks you which is approaching the yield sign, you would pick graph A because graph A doesn't come to a complete stop. And at a yield sign, you do not have to come to a complete stop. If we look at this graph, they're asking you to figure out how the sales will go for a frozen yogurt. The graph shows the daily sales of a frozen yogurt at a new store during a 6-month period, starting on opening day in April. Provide a summary for what the graph shows by describing what is happening in terms of the situation for each section of the graph. Well, the store opens in April, so it starts to gain people. You'll notice the sharp increase, which is linear because it's a straight line. This would probably be May and June because the weather is starting to get warm. The store becomes constant, the sales, at C. It's a straight line. They remain the same. It's probably July and August, your hottest months. A lot of people want frozen yogurt then. And then sales start to decline a little bit at a constant rate. And that means the summer is over, it's probably getting a little bit cooler now, and the need for frozen yogurt isn't so high. Let's look at the next example. Which graph represents filling a pot with water at a constant rate? Well, if we look at these three graphs, a constant rate must be a straight line. So A is the only example that has a straight line. B and C's lines are curved, so they can't be constant. Last example. Which graph represents the temperature of a stove burner set to high for a period of time? Well, your stove burner is only set to high. It's not going to warm up. It's not going to slow down, just straight line high. If we looked at graph B, that would be if you turned it on low and then gradually increased it, kept it high, and then made it low again. And on graph C, you would vary it between highs and lows. So A is your answer. I hope this helped you figure out how to analyze qualitative graphs.